When you look down at the sidewalk and see a tiny black insect scurrying by, you're probably just seeing a bug. But in today's explainer, we're going to look a little closer. Because right underneath our feet is one of the most socially complex and ecologically significant forces on planet Earth. We're diving deep into the fascinating world of ants, and the reality of how they operate is absolutely mind-bending. For a long time, we viewed them through this very human lens, projecting our own ideas of society onto their tiny shoulders. But the truth? Their reality is way more alien and honestly far more magnificent than anything we could have invented. So what if millions of individuals thought as one? Seriously, hold that concept in your mind for a second. The reality we are unpacking today is that an ant colony isn't just a random collection of millions of individual bugs, bumping into each other, acting on their own selfish desires. Not at all. Instead, it operates as a single, highly advanced, cohesive entity. To truly understand ants, we have to stop looking at them as single individuals and start viewing them as one massive unified brain. It really requires a total paradigm shift in how we observe the natural world.
In biology, this extreme level of what we call eusociality creates a superorganism. Basically, this is a colony that exhibits such intense cooperation that it literally functions as a single living unit. It's kind of like your own body. Just as you're made up of millions of individual cells all working together to keep you alive, individual ants are like single cells in a much larger, sprawling body. A single ant out on its own is like a detached skin cell. It really can't survive for long. But together they can regulate the climate of their nests, operate these vast underground cities, and pull off some truly extraordinary physical feats.
Section 1. Who rules the colony? Let's decode the hierarchy. Okay, so if you have an underground city functioning flawlessly, common sense tells us there has to be a mayor or a general or some kind of ruler calling the shots, right? Well, that brings us to the biggest, most pervasive myth about ant governance. The monarchy myth. We've all been taught that the queen sits on a throne somewhere, barking orders and directing traffic from the center of the nest. But the reality is vastly different. The colony actually operates on a completely decentralized collective supermind. There is no central commander. The astonishing coordinated actions of the entire colony emerge from incredibly simple rules followed by each individual ant, based entirely on local interactions and environmental cues. Nobody is actually in charge, yet somehow everything gets done perfectly. So if the queen isn't giving orders, what exactly is her job? Well, the queen's true and singular role in the colony is just to serve as the reproductive engine. That is it. She lays millions of eggs to keep the superorganism alive, growing, and constantly replenishing its workforce. And get this, in some species, a single queen can live up to 20 years. She's basically the genetic heart of the colony, pulsating deep within the safest chambers of the nest. But she is completely removed from the day-to-day management of the city. She has absolutely no idea where the food is or if someone's attacking the gates. All right, so how is the actual labor divided up? We just covered the queens. Next, we have the workers and soldiers. And prepare yourself for this one. Every single worker and soldier ant you have ever seen in your entire life is a sterile female. They do absolutely everything. They maintain the nest, they forage for food, care for the brood, defend the territory, and keep that sprawling underground city perfectly clean. The females literally run the world here. And the males? They're produced only seasonally for one highly specific purpose, mating during nuptial flights. And shortly after taking to the skies to fulfill that biological duty, they die.
Section 2. The secret ant language. How the superorganism talks.
So if we have hundreds of thousands of sterile females building cities and defending borders without a leader telling them what to do, how on earth do they coordinate? Well, they rely on a highly sophisticated, three-pronged communication network. First, chemical. They use pheromone trails to route food, acting like a highly dynamic living GPS system. Second, tactile. They physically rub antennae to perform instant ID checks in the dark. And third, acoustic. They use a process called stridulation, which is rubbing body segments together or actively tapping their heads on hard surfaces to sound alarms. It's this intricate, overlapping web of data transfer that's happening at lightning speed all around them.
Let's look a little closer at those chemical signals to see the absolute genius efficiency of their pheromone trails. It all starts when a lone scout ant finds a food source. She lays down a chemical scent on her way back to the nest. Other workers pick up this scent, they follow it, and every time they successfully find the food, they add their own scent upon returning. This makes the signal stronger and stronger, attracting even more workers. But here is where the true magic happens. When the food runs out, the ants returning empty-handed stop laying the scent, and the chemical naturally dissipates. It essentially deletes itself. This guarantees the colony never wastes precious energy marching to an empty food site. Now, what happens when they bump into each other in the pitch-black tunnels of their nest, navigating this crowded metropolis? That's where the tactile interactions come in. When ants meet, they quickly tap their antennae together to share hydrocarbons. Think of this like a biological barcode scan. In just a fraction of a second, an ant can determine if the insect in front of her belongs to her specific colony, which prevents deadly infiltrations, and exactly what job that ant is supposed to be doing right at that moment. It's a localized exchange of info that keeps the entire superorganism perfectly synchronized.
Section 3. Incredible feats of survival. The supermind in action.
Through these really simple local interactions, this overlapping web of smells, touches, and sounds, the decentralized supermind awakens, and it allows for some incredible feats of survival. Imagine being able to carry a fully loaded pickup truck on your back using only your teeth. That is the proportional equivalent of what the awe-inspiring leafcutter ant does every single day. These tiny insects march out into the rainforest, carve up fresh foliage, and carry pieces up to 50 times their own body weight back to their underground nests in these long, perfectly organized columns. But why are they carrying all these leaves?
Well, here's a massive twist for you. They don't actually eat the leaves. Leafcutter ants are meticulous agriculturalists. They are literally farmers. They take these massive leaf chunks deep underground, chew them up into a moist mulch, and use that mulch to actively cultivate a highly specialized mutualistic fungus. And that fungus is their actual food source. They meticulously manage their crops, weed out bad bacteria, and harvest their food, making them one of the very few non-human animal lineages on Earth to develop and sustain complex, large-scale agriculture. Absolutely wild, right?
And hey, if subterranean farming isn't incredible enough for you, let's look at the army ants. Army ants form living structures, like bridges and scaffolds, directly from their own bodies. When an army ant on the march encounters a steep drop, a rushing stream of water, or a wide gap, it doesn't just wait around for a bridge to be built. It simply stops, anchors itself to the edge, and lets its sisters walk right over it. Hundreds of thousands of ants dynamically self-organize, constantly correcting their footing and redistributing weight to create living, breathing bridges so the superorganism can march seamlessly across the chaotic jungle floor.
Finally, let's shift gears from the lush, vibrant jungle to the punishing, arid desert. I want you to meet the honeypot ants. In a harsh environment where food and water can completely vanish for months on end, they've evolved a specialized class of worker called a replete. These repletes act as living biological storage tanks. During times of plenty, other workers gather food and forcefully feed these repletes nectar and honeydew until their abdomens physically swell up to the size of small grapes, stretching their exoskeletons to the absolute limit. Just imagine an underground chamber lined with these living larders hanging upside down from the ceilings of the nest, shimmering, kind of like little amber ornaments in the dark. When the brutal dry season hits and the landscape is utterly barren, the colony starts to starve. It's then that the repletes regurgitate their carefully stored food, distributing it droplet by droplet to ensure the entire superorganism survives times of extreme scarcity. They literally transform their own bodies into the lifeblood of the colony, sacrificing their mobility for the greater good of the collective. So if ants can build massive underground cities, invent agriculture, form living bridges out of their own bodies, and survive the harshest deserts on Earth, all through a decentralized collective mind without a single leader giving orders, what could we learn from the superorganism? Whether we're designing better traffic grids, programming artificial intelligence, or just learning how to cooperate better as a society, there is a profound genius buzzing right beneath our feet. Next time you see an ant, maybe give it the respect it deserves.